Drastic times calls for drastic measures. In previous videos, I gave you outlines of things that we are doing to stay in business, and some of them are markedly controversial. One is so controversial, people have even said it's unethical. So Sean Ray has no clue what I'm talking about yet. He is going to be a guest on this video because I want to interview him as a landlord. He owns properties, long-term tenants, short-term tenants. I have a couple long-term tenants too, but I arbitrage them, so I don't get to, I don't qualify as the legit landlord. He has mortgages he has to pay. He has consequences if he doesn't pay his mortgages. So the question is when you talk to a landlord about restructuring your deal, what does a landlord think? And we're gonna talk to Sean Ray, get his reactions to this whole thing we've been talking about this last week, okay? So without further ado, let's hammer away at Sean's psyche about what it's like to be a landlord dealing with tenants. Let's jump in. Welcome back, Airbnb family. So you might know Sean Ray. He's been in quite a few videos where I've mentioned him as my best and or only friend because I'm kind of an introvert, except on camera, which is wild. This whole stay-at-home thing's going great for me, by the way. I don't have to deal with people, as always. But Sean, thanks for coming to the video. Of course, it'd be so weird to not thank you for coming on this video because you are the expert we need to talk to. I want your candid responses. I may not like the answers.
Okay.
I get it. Okay.
I'm nervous.
Okay, cool. All right, so as a landlord, has the coronavirus epidemic affected landlords' ability to pay mortgages in any way?
Of course, yes.
Scale of 1 to 10.
Scale of 1 to 10? Oh, 10? Yeah.
You think it's 10?
I think it's 10. Yeah, of course.
For traditional long-term tenants.
I can't imagine there being another scenario in which it could be worse.
So how does this go bad for landlords?
Because the people that are your tenants, they don't have jobs anymore. And so they're telling you they can't pay their rents. And therefore you can't pay your mortgage because you have 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 properties. And if that's happening between 1 or 2 properties, you can survive it. If that's happening between 20 to 100 properties, there's no way anybody has that much cash on hand to float 3 months worth, 4 months worth, potentially 6 months worth of mortgage.
So actually, so this is strange already. I would imagine that somebody with 100 doors would have less total risk because the average default, they'll have some people default, but it's not all or nothing. I would imagine a landlord with 2 properties, if both of his tenants default, then he's got 0% occupancy, where a bigger player wouldn't have to deal with such a big spike. So
yeah,
are you saying that it's tougher for bigger landlords or smaller landlords?
I would say it depends on the landlord, but most landlords are typically working within a socioeconomic class that is going to be renting between $20,000 a year income to about $40,000 a year income. Maybe you're lucky to get a $50,000 a year income. That's typically where people are going to be buying properties and then getting rents that are going to be still cash flowing enough in areas that are still going to be good enough for you to make the deal work. So in that scenario, those kind of people that are going to be renters are going to be people that are going to be working in normal 9-to-5 jobs that are potentially going to be not working right now, and also bartenders, waiters, all these service industry people that cannot be considered essential businesses at the moment. And so with that being said, majority of people, if they're in that buying a property from $50,000 to $200,000, most of their renters are going to be kind of in a scenario where they can't pay. But you also can't evict them, and so you're stuck with this house that for at least for the next 3 months or 4 months, you're probably not going to get your rent. And if you have that times 20 times 100, then you're in a real big scenario. You can float it on 2 or 3 homes because you're only losing $200 or $300, maybe $400 a month, depending how bad you bought it. But you times that by 50 or 100, yeah, that's devastating. I mean, that's life-ending potentially.
Wow. Cool. Well, thanks for that. I was not expecting it to be so grim on the regular long-term side. I thought
that's what I do. I make things super depressing.
Wow. Yeah, you just did. I honestly thought that long-term tenants would be kind of a solution, but if everybody's not making any money, then they'll default. That's true. Rough. Okay. So, who's riskier? Short-term rental business like mine or a regular long-term tenant as a landlord?
If you can get a good deposit, then if I had someone come up to me right now and say, I want to do Airbnb on your property right now, I mean, again, if you have 100 properties, that's a significant amount of headache and risk and potential like risk that you're taking. But if I were to say, okay, I'll give you 3 months worth on my property that I have, instead of a 12-month, I'm going to increase the monthly amount because of the higher risk and the higher damage to the property potentially, but I'm going to increase my deposit for you, and then at the end of the 3 months, we're going to renegotiate the terms for another 3 months, and then I'll give you back your deposit, potentially decrease your deposit, and then based on how you run the property during that time. Because then that's only 3 months at a time worth of risk versus a 12-month potential risk issue that these bartenders, waiters, service industry people might not ever get their job back.
So coming in right now, somebody pitched you to pick up a new property, you'd want an increased deposit and a probationary lease.
Yes.
Interesting. Strong play. Real strong move. That's actually not very host friendly.
Yeah,
sucks. I would not want to pick up a property from you.
I got to look after me, not them.
Well, that's good. You should do that.
Call me Brian Chesky.
Oh, Rob.
Hey,
so as you know, like I'm shopping for deals, right? I'm shopping for the best deals. So you have obviously like a real strong line. So I don't think I'd be able to get as good of a deal from you as I'd like. Picking up a new property right now, my philosophy is to pick up from people who really need their home filled, so they're going to give me terms on my terms. He's got his terms, and then we'd come at each other and negotiate, right? So you have a typical lease that you would sign with somebody, and what you just said was different from your normal, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that in a way is a negotiation.
Yes.
So is it possible to say that like a lease between a landlord and a tenant is a negotiation then?
Of course, yes.
Okay. In this case, you'd be getting a better deal if it went well, because you're negotiating for better terms.
I know where you're going with this, but quickly, I just want to say, because I have a stronger hand.
Yeah.
I know this is tough to hear, but because I have the ability to do a 3-month forbearance right now, which if you guys watch my video that I'm about to release or just release, depending on when this comes out, I'll go over this, but since I don't necessarily have to pay mortgage for the next 3 months on a single family residence, this doesn't necessarily work when it comes to multifamily, but I don't necessarily need someone in there right now, so I don't want to take on a new tenant that's going to give me less money than I could if I just were to wait and take on someone that fits the criteria that I really want after the 3-month period forbearance, or just let it sit on the market for rent.
Okay,
vacant,
so
whatever.
you're going to take a lower risk tenant because you have time to shop around.
Correct.
Smart. Okay, cool. So, okay, now with that said, I think we just learned a lot of like how Sean Ray like has this philosophy of landlordship. That's kind of cool. He's definitely an investor trying to make money on his properties. You're doing this as a business.
Yes.
You're not trying to like.
There's no charity here.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that's one point. So now, all right. Now I'm going to hit you with something, Sean. Okay. So let's say we're already tenants, right? Let's say we entered a contract. And now we're here, right? We've been a tenant for like 4 or 6 months, not necessarily long. When you found out that the travel economy dropped, what would have been your initial like thoughts about our business without even us talking to you? Like,
if you were my tenant and you were an Airbnb tenant, or if you were my tenant and it was a long-term 12-month tenant?
So let's say you're a landlord at some Airbnbs and you caught the news that it was hitting the fan. Like,
I would pretty much assume that there's no way I'm going to be able to get my rent from this person, and I would be very proactive and being like, hey, I know this is kind of hitting you hard. I just want to see how your bookings are for this month. I checked on your Airbnb listing. I realized that it's completely empty. How's rent going to be this month? And based on what they say, I'm going to lean really heavy on trying to kick them out that month and get my deposit back for the month that they missed, because I would ask for a month or two up front based on it being a short-term housing rental situation. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. Yeah.
So you would try to be proactive about getting them out before like the moratorium of eviction kicked in.
Exactly. And they're going to be like, no, it's fine. No, it's fine. And be like, is it really though? Because I'm pretty sure looking right here, screenshots, it looks like you're 100% vacant. You're not going to be able to pay rent this month. So
in your case, you as a landlord, knowing you had a short-term tenant, you would have been looking for ways to get them off the property, knowing that they were going to default.
Yeah, I would be pushing them out, making sure I'd go through the agreements that we had and try to figure out if there's anything they did, anything I could prove to kick them out. Yeah.
Wow, smart. Okay, so a shrewd, smart landlord, knowing that he probably won't get paid on his lease, is going to try to find a way to break the lease before the non-eviction like US wide thing happened. So now it's too late, right?
Which is also easier said than done if you have less than 5 properties. If I had 100 properties and I was so ADD and all over the place, and this is happening between multiple properties, I probably wouldn't be as proactive.
Yeah, so a small-time landlord owns a couple homes, watching his tenants like a hawk to make sure he's not going to get screwed, would be looking at this stuff.
Right.
It's true. So there are some landlords who will follow this philosophy. There's some landlords that will be more hands-off and passive because they've got bigger fish to fry and more properties.
Correct.
Okay, so now I call you. Instead of you calling me, I say, hey, Mr. Ray, I've got an idea. All right, I'm sure you're familiar with the forbearance policy that came out through the stimulus last month.
What is that? Tell me about them.
Would you actually say that because you know about it?
I would actually not say that. I would know about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's like total honesty. Some landlords don't know about it, right? So you, in this case, I did introduce forbearance to other landlords who had no clue. But I'll say, hey, I've got an idea. We are going to be super cash lean for the next 2, 3, 4 months. We don't know how long. But what I'd like to offer you is the opportunity to take a forbearance, and we're going to pay you to take it.
Pay me to take the forbearance?
Yes.
What?
That's actually happened.
Okay.
That's a ballpark. That the response was ballpark, something that happened. I'm like, okay, so the way we look at this is, I understand. It's still recording? Yeah, it's okay, good. Okay. So
I'm still on the phone.
So yeah, script here. I understand that your mortgage costs money. Whether or not you pay the mortgage, you still are accruing interest. You have property taxes. You have holding costs to your home. So the forbearance is something that allows you to not pay your mortgage, but you're still incurring costs to own the home, forbearance or not. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to pay you all of the associated costs of your property that you would still accrue even if you took a forbearance, like accrued interest, your property taxes, insurances, everything else that you normally pay every month. And I'd like to pay you 10% on top of that. Okay.
Keep going.
Do you see the look on his face? He didn't necessarily like that. So at that point, I would say this would allow us to, we'd still pay, I'm ballparking 50 to 75% of what we would normally be paying you, but of course you would not be paying your mortgage, so that way both of us could experience a reduction in cost during this economic slowdown.
So what I would do, okay, thank you, Sean, so much for calling. How are you doing, by the way? How's your day?
Good. I've had a little bit of coffee. Saw a friend I haven't seen in a while, and just enjoying my night. I'm healthy, by the way.
That's good. That's good. I don't actually care that much. So here's the deal. I am going to consider your offer because I don't feel like putting my home back on the market to find a new tenant right now. But the deal is I have 1 to 2 months, depending on our negotiation we had before this, but I have 1 to 2 months of your deposit already in my bank. So by you doing this, you're breaking the terms we already agreed to. So I'm more than happy to create new terms for you that it can be a temporary term, but I am not, based on you breaking the current terms that we have, I'm going to keep your deposit. So therefore that's going to basically cover 2 months worth of rent, which you are not going to be able to get your deposit back. But based on that, after that, we create a new term, which you still need to pay a deposit for. And then yes, I will pay you, or you can pay me whatever my holding cost is until we recover from this problem. Deal?
Interesting. So you'd like to start a new lease?
Well, because you're changing the lease, so I have to start a new lease, legally speaking.
Yes, so at this point we haven't broken the lease.
Well, you're talking about it.
We're talking about a modified rental agreement. Yes, sir.
Yes,
so
yes.
At this point we have an agreement. I guess.
Call me back.
Okay, cool. In this case, he'd be really hard to negotiate with landlord.
Sorry. Is that not what you're looking for?
Oh, no. I mean, I told you I wouldn't necessarily like the answer. So in his case, with the 100 properties that I have, he's one of the properties that I have to pay full rent to because he, so far, does not like my offer.
I don't mind it. I just am saying you have to pay. I'm not going to give you back your deposit. Then we have to start a new negotiation.
Yeah.
I would take it, but you're not getting your deposit back.
So in his case, he's trying to, he understands he has a strong hand. And he's like, okay, so what I can do is I can play it like this. He's already aware of the forbearance and he already plans on taking it. So now I'm not offering him any value by introducing the forbearance. He's also not multifamily, so there's no partnership where I help him get it. Because multifamily, you have to show documentation.
Also, for all you guys that are property owners out there, if you take forbearance, it makes it significantly more difficult to evict your tenant. So if you are saying that they did not pay rent for the last 3 months, you didn't pay mortgage for the last 3 months. So it makes it significantly more difficult for you to kick them out at the end of this forbearance period. And
so in that case, if the tenant finds out that the landlord took forbearance, the tenant could just decide to skip rent.
Yeah, but the tenant would never do that, right?
The tenant would normally never do that. But in this case, a landlord taking forbearance and then charging the tenant full rent is also, in a way, it's like a two-way street, don't you think?
Yes, so in that scenario, it is kind of like an unethical situation. But the fact is that you never have to pay rent again. So here's the other thing, is that if that's the case, the landlord would still have to pay that mortgage back at some point, either at the end of the forbearance period all at once, divide it out between his mortgage, which increases his monthly rate, which makes it harder for him to make profit off of you in the future, or if he somehow can negotiate it, or she can negotiate it at the end of the life of the loan, then either way, they have to pay it back and it's going to be more expensive. So by you not paying rent, it's not the same as him not paying or her not paying mortgage, because they still have to pay the mortgage. You just don't have to pay the rent. So if there's a way for you to negotiate the rent that you're not paying into the rest of the term, then maybe that's equal.
Okay. So in that case, it would take this sounds like we skipped a second or third phone call about it. You're taking forbearance, right? And me not paying rent is not the same as you not paying your mortgage, because your costs you just kick the can, right?
Potentially
a renter, they're paying for time, right? They're paying for their monthly time. So in this case, when I approach you and say, okay, so you're taking forbearance, and I understand that you still have costs. I'd like to pay for those costs, but I would like to share in that reduction. And that's what I've asked the first time.
Yeah.
Ethically, it's actually the most fair for both the landlord and the tenant to receive some form of relief together, is what it ethically sounds like. But the landlord should still profit off of his property, because it's still an investment property, right? So if somebody came to you with an offer, let's take my pitch off, because obviously my pitch kind of failed the first time.
Didn't fail, it's just different people.
Yeah. So if somebody's going to make you an offer, like saying, hey, so you're going to take forbearance, and I want to modify how much rent I'm paying because everybody's hurting, what would they have to pay you, like, percentage over the top of your costs for that to be what you think to be like worth your time to? So let's say like you just freeze the current lease.
No, I get it.
So
instead
of
renegotiating the lease, you're saying, like, for me not to renegotiate lease with you, then what do I need to do? Is that what you're saying?
So yeah, let's take the current lease. We're going to extend that current lease month by month for however long we're in forbearance period. The lease stays the same, but I'm still committed to 10 more months. Like, I owe you 10 months of a lease right now. We're going to continue. That 10-month lease will still exist when forbearance is over. But every month that we're in a mutual forbearance agreement, we're going to take a bridge lease, like in the middle.
Get you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that, but I can see how that could work. I don't even know how that would work contractually, because then you have to do an amendment to the contract that you already have. Mm-hmm. And then you have to basically, it would be complicated. So the only scenario that I can see doing that is breaking the current lease, not giving the deposit back, restarting a new lease for 3 months under the terms we negotiate, and then after the end of that, restarting a new lease based on new terms. And if I like the new terms at the end of the 3 months, then I keep the resident, and if I don't, I kick them out and I find a new resident.
Okay,
and
so in your case, you'd want to start a new lease.
I would want to start a new lease, because legally speaking, if I don't, then I'm not covered. The amendment can be misinterpreted and misconstrued, and lawyers get their hands on it and then say that, well, because of this, and now you renegotiated, and that means you said it's okay, so therefore he's due to his deposit. You know, it can make things really complicated. And I just don't. I want everything cut and dry. That way, legally speaking, I'm covered. Yeah. That's me, though. There's a lot of other people out there that are hurting. They're just like, geez, just don't leave. If you leave, I'm done. And so they'll take anything they can get.
So results may vary there.
100%. Yeah.
So I mentioned one landlord in a previous video that I did the screenshot. And the way I approached him is I said, hey, do you know about this forbearance thing yet?
Okay.
And he was like, no. I'm like, okay, so here's how it's supposed to work. I would like to offer you an opportunity to take it where I still pay you to take it. Now every bank does it differently. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to take a look at your forbearance options, and then I'd like to offer you more money than the forbearance will cost you. So he went and he did his homework. He came back and said, okay, his bank or lender said, I can take it for this many months this way, and I can do this. Okay. After he had his facts, it's like, okay, so let's calculate what your actual hard costs are, like insurance, accrued interest and stuff, and I'd like to pay you that plus 10. And so what we did is we made the agreement that he was going to take forbearance for 4 months, with the new information that I gave him, and he went and like verified it, and then we made a agreement that we're going to freeze the current lease, and then for 4 months that he takes advantage of forbearance, we'd have a modified rent structure.
I'm surprised he got it for 4 months. That's a cool deal. I mean, if that worked out, that's great for you.
Yeah,
and
so that's how I went through that one with him.
Here's the deal, guys. If you're watching this, and I didn't know what he was going to ask me, but
yeah, I could tell.
what works for me doesn't work for you and him and whatever. Like real estate, the most important thing you need to know about real estate and real estate investing is that there's no golden bullet. There's no silver bullet. There's no right way to do anything. Everything is a negotiation. So if you have the guts and the vuspa, is it vuspa?
Yeah, chutzpah.
Chutzpah.
Yeah.
If you have the cojones, no, that's really sexist. I'm sorry for ladies out there that do this. But if you have the willpower to go out there and really assert your will on whoever it is you're working with in real estate, then you'll be surprised the amount of things people will agree to. There's a lot of people out there that say, oh, they probably won't do that, or oh, it's really just a phone call. And if you just make the phone call, you'll be surprised what people will agree to. And you might have 100 properties like homie here, and 99% of them might say no, but one might say yes. And then it might be 5%, it might be 10%. And he might save himself $1,000, $10,000, $20,000 a month just by 100 phone calls. But what is that worth to you? I mean, that's over $100,000 or so at the end of the year in savings just by making a couple of phone calls. So don't be lazy. Know the golden rule in real estate is that everything is negotiable, and it's 100% correct. Everything is negotiable. And if you're too lazy to make those calls, then you're too lazy to be doing this in the first place, and you should get out of it. Just go back to watching videos and liking and not actually participating. Oh shit.
Nice. That was good. Hey, if anybody's going to yell at the subscriber base, that's kind of good. Okay, so in your case, from what I just heard, is the act of negotiating with your landlord is not unethical.
No, that's exactly what you should do in real estate. Cool. You should 100% negotiate every single time you have a chance to negotiate.
And if they say no, you're paying full rent.
Yeah, if they say no, worst going to happen is you're exactly where you are.
Yep.
And if they say yes, then you just got yourself a good deal. And they, as a landlord, might feel like they just got themselves a good deal because they didn't lose a deal. They didn't lose a client that's currently paying. They don't want to find a new client because that might lead to a month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months of vacancy. And that's way more expensive than just paying a percentage off of what you're currently paying as it is. Yeah. So to him or her, he's thinking, it's about the same anyways. I just don't feel like putting it back on the market and dealing with the stress and the risk.
Mm-hmm. Well, that takes us back to the beginning of the video where you as a landlord to an Airbnb, you have your own Airbnb, so you don't have an Airbnb tenant, but what you said you'd do is you'd be checking their calendars, right? Yeah. So you're already speculating on their risk. You're trying to reclassify their risk, right?
Yes.
So you, on one side of the argument in your head, where on how you debate what you're going to do with this person, you're like, this person could default, right? And if they default, then I have costs associated with the default, eviction, new spot. Mm. Then you're like, well, if I keep them, by modifying the agreement, does it increase my likelihood of keeping them, or or they default the same period of time anyway, right? And so honestly, in my case, if I was going to have to cut losses on properties, and this is something that businesses are doing right now, like Sonder, Lyric, Zeus, they're actually shuttering leases early, they're laying off staff. We haven't laid off anybody, and we haven't cut any leases. But if we were going to cut a lease, the logic here is we would look at the dogs. A dog is an investment, or a business doesn't make you money. You've got cash cows, which are businesses that make you tons of money, and then you got ones that don't. So each lease has a profit. We tell you what our average profit is, but I'd have to go through each lease and say, okay, over the last year, last 3 months, last 6 months, here's how much profit I made per month per lease. I would cut my worst ones. And now, if I had a modified rent agreement with a landlord where my rent is lower over the next 3 or 4 months, that would up it in my likely to keep category. So if I was cutting the bottom of all my leases, the ones I've been able to negotiate positively would stay in my portfolio. So if I was going to default on leases, I default on bad leases, not less profitable leases, that I don't have a favorable rental agreement with that landlord. So in this case, there's an argument for him, there's a foreseeable argument for him to make his deal with me more favorable if he thinks a company like mine could default and he doesn't want to have to go through the default and he can't find a way to kick me out, he's out of his window, there's a moratorium on evictions. He's like, shh, I'm stuck with him, right? So
where does this all come from?
Where does what part come from?
It seems like like it seems like you're trying to defend the ethical use of renegotiating your lease.
There's people in the comments that are saying that if you can't afford your rent, you shouldn't be in business.
Okay. I don't know why you check the comment section, but I guess here's the deal. Okay, so it's unethical if you can't afford your rent that you agree to. That is correct. But is it unethical for you as a landlord not to work with your tenants whenever they're going through hardship, that's going through the situation they're going through right now? So you can't, like, if you are a passive observer on his videos, like, let me be the bad guy, whatever, man.
Sure.
I don't know the scenario. I'm just going off the top of what my head is. But if you're just hating on him because he's a business owner and he has a lot of properties and he's trying to teach you how to renegotiate your prices and hopefully save you guys money, that he doesn't need to be doing that. There's no profit that he's making off of this. And so, well, maybe he is. You got to add dollars or whatever. But yeah, he's trying to help you guys out. And you got to think of it from a business perspective. Like if you're thinking of it from a YouTube watcher perspective, I can understand how it can be kind of confusing. But if you're actually a business owner and you're running businesses and you're out there, you realize that there's no real ethical thing to this. Like it's unethical for me not to lower my rents. It's unethical for them not to pay their rents. And so in the end, it's not about ethics, it's about negotiating and who is hurting and who can help the person hurting. It's not about let me hurt you and then I'm advantaged because I'm hurting you. It's I'm hurting and let me solve your hurt. You have a problem, let me solve the problem. That's how business is done. So if you're looking at it as an ethical kind of conundrum, you got to get that out of your head. Like there's people out there that are hurting that need people like him to come in and save the day. He's not coming in and take advantage of them when they're down. He's saving the day. And so change your mindset, people. That's the first step, I guess.
Well, cool. Yeah, there is definitely a big rift between philosophical watching YouTube like mindset and in the trenches running a business mindset.
Yeah.
And it's fun because there's people in the comments who have been business owners for a long time, and some of them like they quote the same people. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, and Warren Buffett, when everybody's turning left, you turn right.
That's not actually what he said.
Stuff like that. So. What I hope this sheds light on is that there is a logical process that a landlord goes through when you make the presentation to ask to adjust rates. And what I think it really showed here is I'm not in some power position going, yeah, you're screwed, I'm just paying you less rent. Like it legit can go that way where you call your landlord and go, hey, I'd like to modify my rent agreement because of what's going on. Here's the facts. What do you think? He's like, well, cool, let me take your deposit and let's go from there.
But even if you think about it from like the loan perspective, this is such a silly conversation. That's like, it's unethical for me not to pay my mortgage. It's like I'm calling my mortgage company and being like, hey, due to situations, I need to remodify my agreement with you about how I'm paying my loan. Yeah. Like, is that unethical? Are they unethical for not doing it? Am I unethical for not being able to pay my mortgage? Like, what's the ethics in it? It's just numbers. Yeah. And if the numbers make sense, do it.
And in this case, commerce, business, money, it's all a layer or two above what is core and what's human, right? We all need a place to live. We all need to eat. We all need community. Those are some primes. What we've built, all this fancy stuff, like your video talks about how everything we've done is built on debt, right? The American economy. Did you touch on that?
Which video?
The video that you either just released or about to release based on when I released this video.
On which channel?
Your Sean Ray Realty YouTube channel. Yeah. So I'm gonna put his YouTube channel in the bottom of this video since we're having fun. But he made a point that our entire system is based on debt.
I think I made that point.
I don't know if you mentioned in the video, but while you were researching for your video, I remember you went through this process.
Yeah.
So what we've built, this debt-based system and capitalism and government, that all didn't exist when we first existed as humans. I mean, just to get super meta and philosophical, back when we were swinging clubs at cattle, I don't think any of it mattered. So as something like this, as a crisis, as a pandemic hits, it boils us back down to what is core and what's basic. And if the economic machine completely shuts down and goes into hibernation, everything will break. We're all riding a very thin line right now, wondering, is it going to fall over or not, right? Like you just your video, I think you mentioned like, well, if you buy a house now, it could be like buying a home right before the fall of Rome, right? Like if you think about it.
I did say that.
So yeah, everybody's speculating like it all could just break. Money could cease to matter. Like we could go like Mad Max, straight Mad Max up in this.
I really like, I'm such a nerd, but I really like Frozen 2. And in Frozen 2, they always talk about do the next right thing. And that's all you can really do is just, you know, don't be paralyzed by what might or might not happen. Just do the next right thing based on the information that you have. And make sure to learn the best information by checking out videos like this.
Thank you for doing the next right thing and liking this video. Thanks for watching Airbnb Automated. Thanks for having fun with us. Hope you're enjoying your stay-at-home order like we are. And I will see you on the other side. Yes!
I forgot to do that in my video.